If you're wondering how this innocent kid went from this to looking like this,
I am a ghoul.
well, the answer is pretty simple. Life generally sucks. And it sucks even more if you live in a world where scary-eyed monsters depend on human flesh to survive. This is the scary reality that faces Ken Kaneki, the main character in the anime series Tokyo Ghoul. Does he have what it takes to suffer through this morbid world? Guess we'll have to find out. Just a warning though, things will get brutal. So without further ado, let's dive in. Episode 1 is called Tragedy, and it opens up with a gruesome scene. A female ghoul has made her way onto the top floor of a skyscraper, and now she's happily feasting on everyone unfortunate enough to cross her path. So ghouls are basically just human-looking monsters who eat nothing but human flesh. Anyway, the ghoul doesn't get too far into her meal when another much larger male ghoul appears and informs her that he has been ordered to capture her alive. He clearly underestimates her though, because she quickly escapes, stealing his weapon in the process. The next day, we get introduced to a bookworm college freshman. Yup, this is our very own Ken Kaneki, as he sits in his favorite coffee shop called the Unteku Cafe with his childhood friend Hideyoshi, or Hide. But Kaneki isn't there just for the coffee. He is waiting on his crush Rize Kamashiro, who also loves coming there just as much as Kaneki. He is dying to ask her out. So when he discovers that they both love the same author, they make plans to visit the bookstore together. The date goes great. They bond over literature, go to lunch, and then to the bookstore. At the end of it all, Rize even asks Kaneki if he could walk her home, because she lives where all the ghoul attacks have been happening. Of course, being a gentleman, Kaneki agrees, but things take a sharp left turn after that. Yeah, it was all too good to be true for a while, wasn't it? As they reach Rize's stop, Kaneki finds out, very painfully, why Rize hadn't been eating anything at lunch. Because, of course, the only thing ghouls can eat is human flesh. It turns out Rize was the binge eater we had seen at the start of the episode. However, just as she was about to turn Kaneki into her next victim, a large iron beam falls on top of her, taking her out instantly. Kaneki couldn't care less about that though, because her bite had left him severely injured. Our boy here was practically floating in and out of consciousness as paramedics rushed to the scene. After all that drama, Kaneki wakes up in a hospital with a half Kakugan, which is the red eyes that all ghouls have. Why? Well, because he received organ transplants from Rize, all so the doctors could save his life. Kaneki doesn't know this at first, but after noticing that he has no appetite for normal food, he began testing himself. He begins to panic after realizing he has all the characteristics of a ghoul, such as an indestructible stomach and zero appetite for normal food. So he decides to hide out in his apartment, which doesn't help much because his cravings for flesh drive him out into the public and right into another ghoul who is eating a corpse. As the ghoul offers Kaneki a bite of this very tasty meal, they both get beat up by another ghoul who claims authority over the area. However, not long after that, Kaneki gets saved by Tuka, the waitress at his favorite coffee shop, who is also, surprise surprise, a ghoul. Tuka tells him to finish the corpse the other ghouls had been fighting over, but Kaneki refuses as he's still half human, and he can't stomach the idea of eating a dead person. This doesn't faze Tuka though, who runs up and forces a piece of dead flesh into Kaneki's mouth. Yikes! Episode 2, titled Incubation, picks right back up in the alleyway. Yoshimura, who is a ghoul and the owner of the Unteku Cafe, stops Tuka from beating up Kaneki. Yoshimura then asks Kaneki to come back with him to the cafe. Back at the cafe, he reveals to Kaneki that the shop is actually a hideout for the ghouls in the 20th ward, which is the name of the area Kaneki lives in. He then shows Kaneki how to down his urges for flesh by drinking coffee, which is the only human food ghouls can eat without getting sick. After some time, Kaneki returns to school with an eye patch to cover up his Kakugan because he can't control it fully. Hide, his best friend, is happy to see him but notices how pale Kaneki's skin is and tells him to eat more. Hide then asks Kaneki to follow him to visit Nishio, an upperclassman that he had met on campus. Much to his shock, Kaneki finds out that Nishio is actually the ghoul who had him beat up in the alley earlier that week. As they meet, both ghouls act casual, but when Nishio invites Hide to his place, Kaneki quickly offers to join, suspecting it's a trap and that Nishio plans to eat Hide. Turns out, Kaneki was absolutely right. The moment they let their guard down, Nishio attacks them both and knocks Hide unconscious. As he's getting beat up by Nishio, Kaneki gets a flashback of his lifelong friendship with Hide, remembering that Hide was the only person he had after his parents died. This emotional moment finally unleashes Kaneki's Kagune, which is the organ ghouls use to fight or hunt. Kaneki then completely mauls Nishio, despite having zero fighting experience. But Kaneki hasn't eaten any flesh since Tuka fed him in the alley, and now the hunger is back, even stronger than before. Kaneki loses control and is only moments away from eating Hide until Tuka shows up just in time to stop him. Honestly, the way she keeps popping up to save Kaneki needs to be studied. For now though, both Kaneki and Hide are safe and recovering back at the Enteiku Cafe under Yoshimura's care. At Enteiku, Yoshimura comforts Kaneki because Kaneki thinks that being a half-breed means he doesn't belong in either world. Yoshimura reminds Kaneki that he belongs to both the human and ghoul worlds, assuring him that he is not alone. And after that, he also offers Kaneki a job at the cafe. Just before the episode ends though, we meet Mado Kureo, this guy right here with the crazy eyes, along with Kotaro Amon. These guys are top investigators from the Commission of Counter Ghoul, or CCG for short. Investigators at the CCG are called Doves, and they have one single task: kill all ghouls. Their team is made up of humans who have been trained to track down and fight ghouls. Plus, there are CCG buildings in every ward in Tokyo, so that they can respond quickly to ghoul sightings or attacks. Of course, this wouldn't be a fair fight for the humans if they can't keep up with the ghoul's speed or strength. So all CCG investigators are given weapons called Quinke. A Quinke is made from the Kagune of a dead ghoul and has the ability to puncture a ghoul's skin. But if a Quinke isn't enough to stop a ghoul, then an Arata should do the trick. This is basically a full body armor that increases a human's physical abilities. There is one drawback though. An Arata uses the blood of the person wearing it, so investigators really only use it if they have no choice. Well, now that Mado has found the weapon Rize took from the ghoul who attacked her in episode 1, he and Amon are now tracking him down. This should be interesting. The next episode, called Dove, introduces us to Yamori. Yup, the male ghoul who tried fighting Rize in episode 1. Yamori loves torturing people, so it's no surprise that he's a big fan of Jason Voorhees from the movie Friday the 13th. Yamori even wears the same mask that Jason wears in the movie, so the CCG has nicknamed him Jason from the 13th Ward. Well, Yamori hasn't been able to torture anyone after Rize stole his torture device at the skyscraper, so he goes off to get it replaced. This is where we meet the peaceful ghoul family of Dr. Fueguchi, his wife Ryoku, and their daughter Hinami. Yamori has been getting torture devices from Dr. Fueguchi for a while now, mostly because he threatens to kill Dr. Fueguchi's family if he doesn't get what he wants. But this time is different, and Dr. Fueguchi can sense Yamori isn't just here to get tools, so he sends his wife and daughter to Enteiku for safety. Back at the CCG, things are getting intense now that Mado and Amon have been put in charge of the 20th Ward. This is mainly because of Rize's binge eating at the skyscraper, and Jason being spotted around the area. Meanwhile, at Enteiku, Yoshimura introduces Kaneki to Yomo, who brings Kaneki on a scavenger hunt for food. Basically, they go to a certain mountain where persons who no longer wish to stay on Earth come here to take their last breath. Yikes. Well, at least it's a lot better than killing random humans. But things are about to get a whole lot harder now that Mado and Amon have started wreaking havoc on ghouls in the 20th Ward. This causes Yoshimura to ask Tuka to bring Kaneki to Uta, so he can make a mask for Kaneki. Uta is a strange ghoul who enjoys spending his free time making the best masks for ghouls all around. The masks protect ghouls' identities so they can't be tracked by the CCG Doves. Anyways, things are looking up at the cafe now that Kaneki and Hinami have become good friends. Hinami also loves the same author as Kaneki, so he starts helping her to learn the words in the book, which pleases Tuka. But she will be damned before she admits that. But just as things start to feel normal again, a familiar face drops into the cafe that changes the whole mood. And not for the better. Episode 4 is called Supper, and it reveals the person who popped into the cafe in the last episode. Ah, it's Tsukiyama. Not the guy you want to see if you plan on having a good day, that's for sure. You see, Tsukiyama is what is known as a Kakuja in the TG universe, and Kakuja are basically cannibal ghouls. Knowing this, Tuka tells Kaneki to be careful after Tsukiyama takes an interest in him. The warning falls on deaf ears though, because when Tsukiyama visits Kaneki at school to invite him to a coffee date, Kaneki agrees only because he doesn't want to hurt Tsukiyama's feelings. Jeez. After what happened with Rize, you would think he would learn to stop going on dates with purple-haired baddies. Anyway, that night after a hard training session with Yomo, Kaneki goes to a bar where he learns some more lore about his kind. According to Itori, the owner of the bar, there is a rumor of another one-eyed ghoul whose Kakugan is on the opposite side that Kaneki has his. As it turns out, half-bred ghouls are far superior to full-blooded ones. Who would have guessed? Kaneki also learns that someone was on the rooftop of the building Rize was killed in just before she was about to eat him. After that, Sunday rolls around and Kaneki goes on his coffee date with Tsukiyama. Naturally, Kaneki asks him about his friendship with Rize, which pisses off Tsukiyama so much that he breaks his coffee cup. When Kaneki sees this and tries to help him, he cuts his finger. Of course. Because he is a cannibal, Tsukiyama jumps at the opportunity to get some of Kaneki's blood on his handkerchief and takes it to the bathroom so he can,
Such a tender and mellow harmony.
Yeah, Tsukiyama's not just 100% ghoul, he is 100% freaky too. After whatever that was, Tsukiyama invites Kaneki over to his mansion to shower and gives Kaneki new clothes. And then we find out that he was actually dressing Kaneki up for his underground fight club. Basically, he lures humans into his home and he has them killed live for other high society ghouls to enjoy. But when Kaneki defeats the giant inbred monster butcher they sent out to kill him, Tsukiyama stops the fight once he realizes that Kaneki is actually a half-ghoul. But don't think this is where it ends, because this guy has a few tricks up his sleeve for our boy Kaneki. Episode 5 is called Scar. We catch up with the Enteku squad as Yoshimura asks Kaneki to pay Tuka a visit since she called in sick. In order to make her human best friend Yoriko happy, Tuka has been selflessly eating the cooked food Yoriko brings her at lunch. This, of course, makes her sick, but she obviously can't reveal to Yoriko why she hasn't been eating as much at lunch. Things get really awkward though when Yoriko brings food for Tuka and sees Kaneki there as well. Yoriko isn't sure what to think, so she just leaves the food with Tuka and dips. Meanwhile, someone else who has their mind on Kaneki, Tsukiyama, hasn't given up just yet. Still, he knows Kaneki will never trust him again, so he comes up with a plan to lure Kaneki into a trap. Basically, Tsukiyama plans to kidnap someone close to Kaneki to use as bait, and when Kaneki comes to rescue them, well, Tsukiyama is gonna have his way with our boy. Ew. So he starts spying on Kaneki to see who is the most important person in his life. As fate would have it, Kaneki decides to meet up with Nishio's girlfriend, Kimi. Nishio hasn't been doing so well after his fight with Kaneki. The stomach wound Kaneki gave him just won't heal, which means Nishio hasn't been eating and is getting weaker every day. So Kimi begs Kaneki to help her man before he dies of hunger and whatnot. But what these two don't know is a freaky force nearby is waiting to strike. Yeah, Tsukiyama has been listening to their whole conversation and mistakes Kimi for Kaneki's girlfriend. So when Kaneki leaves, Tsukiyama kidnaps Kimi to use as bait for his master plan. After Tsukiyama reveals where he is hiding Kimi, Kaneki and Nishi team up to go rescue her. But of course, this is Tsukiyama we're talking about, so things go from bad to weird when he spits out his plans for Kaneki.
Do allow me to explain. I shall feast upon sweet Kaneki, but even as I do, I want him to feast upon her!
With Nishio being so weak and Kaneki lacking fighting skills, the two guys aren't exactly a match for Tsukiyama, but soon enough, Tuka shows up to save the day again. Yeah, she does that a lot. Still, because Tuka has been eating all that human food, she isn't in great condition either. During all this, Tsukiyama reveals that he had a crush on Tuka while they were working together at the Enteku Cafe years earlier. The three try to hold him off, but he has been eating way better than they have, so his Kagune is far stronger. Neither of the three can activate their Kagune, so Tsukiyama makes easy work of them. Especially Nishio, who gets repeatedly stomped on when he tries to stop Tsukiyama from getting to Kimi. Damn, he might be an average fighter, but he is a great boyfriend. But just as things look hopeless, Kaneki gives Tuka some of his blood, which is enough to get her to activate her Kagune. Now, the fight is really on. In episode 6, called Cloudburst, we get thrown right back into the middle of the fight. Now that Tuka has the energy she needs, she goes up against Tsukiyama in one of the best fight sequences in the entire first season. But in the end, it's Nishio who distracts Tsukiyama long enough for Tuka to send him packing. After the fight ends, Nishio crawls to where Tsukiyama has Kimi tied up. As the two lovebirds reunite after all the drama, Tuka says something that sends a chill down Nishio's spine. Kimi has seen too much and has to die. It's sad, but true. Now that Kimi knew they were all ghouls, she could go to the CCG and rat them out. So after Tuka gets Nishio away from Kimi, Tuka has to end her. But as she walks up to Kimi, something unexpected happens. Kimi tells Tuka her Kagune is beautiful. This is the first time Tuka has ever been complimented like this, and it stops her dead in her tracks. Beautiful? That was too much for Tuka to process, so she disappears, leaving Kimi unharmed. After rescuing Kimi, Nishio and Kaneki then team up again, but this time to serve the customers at Inteku. This is thanks to Yoshimura taking in Nishio so that he can heal his wounds. But things aren't as fortunate for Dr. Fueguchi, the guy who's been helping Yamori to replace his torture device. Ever since Yamori's last visit, Dr. Fueguchi's life has been an absolute nightmare. You see, after Dr. Fueguchi sent his wife Ryoku and his daughter Hinami to Inteku, he hoped that giving Yamori a new torture device would be enough for Yamori to leave him and his family alone, and maybe, just maybe, he could get to see his wife and daughter again. But let's be real here, Yamori is practically allergic to kindness. So after getting the new device, he thanks the doctor by casually throwing him through the office wall. We then find out that all of this chaos is being watched by CCG investigators Meido and Amon. They trail Jason all the way to Dr. Fueguchi's office, and now they have a chance to kill both ghouls. Still, the investigators can't keep up with an S-tier ghoul like Yamori. He simply entertains the fight, then disappears. After that, Dr. Fueguchi manages to crawl out of his office, but ends up getting caught by Mado and Amon. When Dr. Fueguchi tries to attack the investigators, Meido kills him and removes his Kagune. All while Dr. Fueguchi is holding a drawing from his daughter Hinami. As this is happening, Hinami is back at Inteku having an argument with her mom. Hinami really wants to see her dad, but Ryoku can't explain to her why this is so dangerous. The two end up forgiving each other, and Ryoku takes out Hinami to get a present. What Ryoku doesn't know though, is that Amon and Mado are close by searching for her and Hinami. Normally, rain dulls a ghoul's senses, but Hinami has a great sense of smell. So when she picks up her dad's scent, she runs right into Mado and Amon holding her dad's Kagune. Brutal. Realizing they were in a trap, Ryoku uses her Kagune to protect Hinami long enough to tell her to run. Episode 7, titled Captivity, picks up with Hinami running for her life, desperately trying to get back to Inteku. But she ends up bumping into somebody and falls down. This is when Kaneki, who was also outside, spots Hinami from across the street and runs over to her. As soon as Kaneki reaches where Hinami is, she tells them that the doves are about to kill her mom. So Kaneki follows Hinami back to the alleyway, but only just in time to see Ryoku get killed by Amon and Mado. Good God. When Tuka hears about this, let's just say she doesn't take it too well. Meanwhile, at the CCG headquarters, Amon and Mado present their evidence from tracking down Hinami. The investigators have already killed both of her parents. Now, they had the green light to get Hinami too. But before they can do that, Tuka has some unfinished business with them. Despite Yoshimura's warning not to take revenge, Tuka tracks down Amon and his co-investigator Kusaba. Yep, this guy, to their favorite noodle shop. As they walk out, Tuka, wearing her rabbit mask, attacks them, killing Kusaba in an instant. She would have taken out Amon too, if Mado didn't show up with his new Queen K. After getting outmatched by Mado, Tuka barely manages to escape him and returns to Inteku. When Yoshimura hears about Toku's disobedience, he simply turns his back on her, but Kaneki vows to help her instead. This is when Tuka comes up with the plan to lure the investigators into a sewage waterway, because it would be hard for them to use their Queen Ks in a small space. In episode 8, titled Circular, we see Mado and Amon hatch a plan to capture Tuka in the waterways. Apparently, Mado already knows that Tuka was trying to lure them in there to finish things off, so he's actually going there to get her instead. Their plan was to use the scent of Hinami's mom to trick Hinami into coming outside into the waterway as well. They knew that Tuka would come to rescue Hinami, which would give them a 2-for-1 deal. Yikes. This works perfectly, as Tuka and Kaneki team up to look for Hinami. This is also when Kaneki puts on his mask for the first time. Man, it looks so sick! After agreeing to split up, Amon runs into Kaneki while Mado sneaks up on Tuka and Hinami in the waterways. Both ghouls take two different approaches. Kaneki wants to stop the ghoul on human violence, so at first he allows Amon to use his Queen Ks to beat him up. But just before Amon kills him, Kaneki steals a bite from Amon, which gives him just enough strength to bring out his Kagune. Kaneki then warns Amon to run before he loses control of his Kagune. Mado, on the other hand, runs out of luck. Tuka was in no mood to spare any human life, especially his. So when Hinami uses her Kagune to break him apart, Tuka gladly finishes the job. After all that, Yomo finds Kaneki, Tuka, and Hinami and carries them back to Inteku. Episode 9 is called Birdcage, and we see a flashback of Amon's early days at the CCG, as well as how he got saved from a harmless-looking ghoul by Inspector Mado. In episode 10, called Aogiri, things quiet down for a little while, but as usual, this doesn't last very long. A group of ghouls called the Aogiri tree are shaking things up in Tokyo, and not in a good way. the Aogiri tree sends Noro, this ghoul with the creepy smiley face mask, and the Bin brothers, who both have masks with cool patterns, to breach the CCG building in the 11th ward. After they kill everyone inside, Tatara, who is one of the leaders of the Aogiri tree, creepily tells the CCG headquarters to come pick up their dead investigators. After doing this, Tatara joins Eto, the female leader of the Aogiri tree, so that they can go and cause more destruction in Tokyo. I guess killing a building of CCG investigators isn't enough for one day. We then find out that they did this because the Aogiri have been searching the ward for Rize. Why? Well, I guess we'll find out about that soon enough. Back at the Enteiku, the squad gets an unexpected visitor. Meet Banjo, a ghoul from the 11th ward and a member of the Aogiri. But Banjo isn't just here for the coffee. He wants to find Rize. Turns out, Banjo has the biggest crush on Rize, which is why he knows that she loves coffee shops. So after tracking her down to the 20th ward, he knew she must have visited Enteiku. Well, Banjo gets his answer soon enough when he smells Rize on Kaneki. This causes Banjo to crash out, but our boy Kaneki has been learning a few moves and knocks Banjo out cold. Atta boy! After Banjo regains consciousness, he tells Kaneki to warn Rize that she should run for her life. Banjo then explains that the Aogiri tree was formed a few months earlier, and basically took over the 11th ward from Banjo and his crew. Since then, the Aogiri tree has been overpowering the doves and driving them out of the 11th ward. Even though Banjo doesn't know why the Aogiri are after Rize, he knows it can't be anything good, so he also warns everyone in Enteiku to leave before the Aogiri tree shows up. The warning comes a little too late though, because in comes Ayato, Tuka's brother, who is also a high-ranking member of the Aogiri tree. But wait, it gets worse. Turns out, Yamori has been following Banjo this entire time, which leads him straight into Enteiku. Yamori is also a high-ranking member of Aogiri, and even has his own crew of ghouls called the White Suits. So, when Yamori also smells Rize's scent on Kaneki, he does the logical thing and beats the life out of Kaneki, trashing the entire cafe in the process. After what feels like an eternity, Yamori then kidnaps Kaneki. When Yoshimura returns to Enteiku with Yomo, he calls a meeting with all his employees. In the meeting, Yoshimura explains that they will rescue Kaneki, but still he can't guarantee that they would be safe doing it. But this is our boy Kaneki we're talking about, so nobody minds risking a limb or two to save him. Of course, the team needs all the help they can get, so guess who also joins the rescue team?
Horror when I was told my best friend Kaneki's life is in grave danger. The low-life scum who captured him must pay.
Well, if there was anyone who wanted Kaneki safe and sound, it would be Tsukiyama. For his own twisted reasons, of course. Episode 11, titled High Spirits, picks up with Tuka voicing everyone's concern about Tsukiyama joining them and rescuing Kaneki. But Yoshimura explains how short they are on allies, so they don't have much choice but to trust Tsukiyama. As they plan their rescue mission, we catch up with Kaneki, who is being held and tortured by Yamori. According to lore, Yamori was captured and tortured by a crazy CCG agent years earlier, which caused him to have severe mental issues. Now that he is free, Yamori takes out his trauma on others through torturing them, just like his idol Jason Voorhees. Meanwhile, the CCG have now evacuated almost every human in the 11th ward so that the war against the Aogiri tree can begin. The investigators have tracked down the Aogiri to an abandoned shopping mall in the district. This also happens to be where Jason is holding Kaneki, so Yoshimura plans to use the CCG attack as a cover for rescuing Kaneki. The plan involves the Enteiku squad dressing up in Aogiri tree robes and scattering in order to search for Kaneki. As the face-off between the CCG officers and the Aogiri tree starts, investigator Amon spots Tuka and identifies her as the ghoul responsible for killing Mado. Brandishing his Queen K, Amon takes a swing after Tuka, but as he does, he gets attacked by the Bin brothers. This allows Tuka to escape and continue looking for Kaneki. Speaking of Kaneki, our guy is somehow still breathing after all of the torture this Jason fanatic has put him through. It probably helps that Banjo and his friends who visited Kaneki last episode are all planning to break him out too, without Jason knowing, of course. But time is against them. Just as it looks like the CCG officers are about to finally take over the building, a presence makes itself known. Shinohara, the veteran CCG commander, tells his chief that the one-eyed owl is standing in front of them. This massive ghoul creature is a kakuja, which means its kagune is so advanced that it covers its entire body. But this only happens when a ghoul is a cannibal. The chief basically gives everyone there the opportunity to run if they feel like it, because it's more likely that they will die if they don't. Imagine being a CCG officer and your boss tells you it's okay to run away. Anyway, after this, something even more interesting happens. As the episode closes, we get a small glimpse of Kaneki's hair, and it's white. This leads us right into the last episode of the first season. Ghoul. Brace yourself, it's about to get real crazy in here. The episode doesn't even have an intro, we just go straight to where we left off. Kaneki is slowly losing his mind, as Yamori starts taking his fingers and toes off, just so Kaneki can regrow them. Then, as Kaneki slowly blacks out, he remembers the advice his mom told him when he was younger.
Ken, it's okay to feel sadness from loss. As long as you remember to stay kind, you'll find joy again.
As Kaneki is hallucinating, he sees Rize, who tells him to stop listening to his mom and being so forgiving. But Kaneki isn't ready to embrace his darkest emotions. That is, until he starts revisiting his childhood memories. While Yamori mercilessly chops Kaneki's fingers and toes, Kaneki begins to look back. He starts remembering how his mom was nice to everyone, and how, just because of that habit of hers, she worked herself to death. As Kaneki resists the urge to ignore his mother's advice, Rize reminds him that soon all of his friends will be dead if Kaneki doesn't tap into his dark side. This is exactly what Yamori wants. He knows that if he pushes Kaneki far enough, he'll break mentally. So, after he gets bored of taking Kaneki's fingers and toes, Yamori decides to have Kaneki choose which of Banjo's friends to kill. Yep, Yamori already knows that they were trying to rescue Kaneki. Kaneki chooses not to participate in Yamori's twisted mind games, and for that, Yamori kills both of Banjo's friends in front of him, just for the fun of it. Damn. This was the final straw. After promising himself to not let Rize's energy control him, Kaneki unleashes his full Kagune. And we get to witness Kaneki go through a transformation where his hair turns white and his whole personality changes. No more shy bookworm college student. Kaneki was now a proper ghoul, and he wasted no time in letting Jason know. As Yamori comes to kill him, Kaneki breaks free and wraps his chain around Yamori's neck, then drops the best one-liner in the season, all in about like 20 seconds.
Why don't you chew on this?
But our boy Kaneki is just getting started here. Even when Yamori grabs Kaneki's leg, Kaneki simply breaks it, just so he can spin kick Jason with the other leg. Soon enough, Kaneki has Yamori defeated, and this is where we see the biggest change in Kaneki. As Yamori is lying there in shame, Kaneki starts torturing Yamori, and then, well, he eats him. What a way to end the first season, seriously. The first episode of Season 2 is called New Surge. As many fans have noted, this season does deviate a bit from the manga, but the story continues from where we left off. The war between the CCG and the Aogiri tree at the abandoned shopping mall is now in full swing. Commander Shinohara and his men are cornered by the one-eyed owl, so they have no choice but to bust out their Arata armor. The Arata armor is basically an upgraded Quinke that's created from the Kakuja, aka cannibalistic ghouls. The only downside to this powerful armor is that it feeds on the user in exchange for granting them extraordinary power. Somewhere on the battlefield, the ultimate sibling rivalry is taking place between Tuka and Ayato. Tuka tries to help Ayato see that the Aogiri tree is just using him, but her brother beats her down and mocks her for trying to associate with humans. Elsewhere, Yomo, Tsukiyama, and Uta aren't having much luck either. As they continue to search the building for Kaneki, they run into Noro, the menacing Aogiri ghoul who literally cannot be killed no matter the attack. When they try slicing him up like sashimi, he simply regenerates like nothing happened. Noro is such a boss that when the attacks stop for a moment, he checks his clock and starts walking off right in front of our guys. Talk about aura maxing. Team Anteku lets Noro go about his business though, because they still need to go find Kaneki, and Noro clearly doesn't intend on dying anytime soon. Back on the rooftop, Shinohara's team have landed a few critical hits on the owl. As the creature starts to bleed, they cautiously celebrate that they might have just put the infamous one-eyed owl out of commission. But the celebration doesn't last long, because the owl immediately heals its wounds. Then, the beast swings its massive sword, and its breeze is powerful enough to blow away the entire CCG squad. Shinohara and Kuroiwa, a fellow CCG official, wage an all-out assault on the owl. But the more they power up their Arata armor, the more they're being eaten alive. Shinohara and his partners soon find themselves on their knees, not from getting attacked by the owl, but from losing so much blood to the Arata armor. The owl then slowly walks over to the two men, but instead of killing them, the owl does what Kaneki did to Amon in Season 1 and spares the officers. According to him, there's no justifiable reason to take a life no matter the cause. Did he forget to tell that to his subordinates in the Aogiri tree? Meanwhile, Ayato isn't interested in showing any mercy to his sister Tuka, especially after she brought up their late father. You see, Ayato despises their old man. He thinks their dad was a weakling and should have protected his family instead of getting killed like a dog by CCG officials. But as Ayato sends Kagune projectiles at his half-conscious sister, Kaneki swoops in and rescues her. Oh, how the tables have turned. Kaneki then hands Tuka over to Nishio and goes on to face Ayato. Further down the road, Hide watches the whole thing go down. Hide has somehow managed to get close enough to the CCG barricades to get a full view of what's been happening. When he sees how much Kaneki has changed, he blames himself for not being there to help his best friend. But in this moment, Kaneki doesn't need any help against Ayato. When Ayato starts coming after Kaneki, he makes Ayato look like a complete amateur. Quite embarrassing, really. Way off in the distance, Eto and Tatara, who have both been non-combative so far, are also watching the fight between Ayato and Kaneki. Eto is so impressed with how strong Kaneki has become, but she is much more concerned with the ongoing battle with the CCG. Back to Kaneki. He keeps taunting Ayato into attacking him, and then does this. Damn, Kaneki, talk about character development. Kaneki confronts Ayato with a sneaking suspicion he has. He suspects that Ayato is not really as bad as he wants people to believe, but instead he has a secret motive for joining the Aogiri tree. Before we can learn what that motive is, Noro pops up out of nowhere, grabs Ayato, and disappears. Just then, the entire ground begins to shake, and we soon see why. The Aogiri has actually baited the CCG into coming after them. Now that most of the CCG officers were in the abandoned building looking for ghouls, a bomb goes off that destroys the entire area and kills almost every CCG officer there. On the outskirts of the 11th Ward, Tuka and Kaneki reunite for a moment. Tuka tries to lighten the mood by joking about his white hair, but soon she realizes that the Kaneki she knew simply isn't there anymore. Kaneki then tells Kuka that he isn't returning to Enteku. Instead, he has decided to join the Aogiri tree. What the actual? Yeah, Tuka is just as surprised as we all are, but Kaneki has already made up his mind. We then see Kaneki meeting up with his new comrades, Eto, Tatara, Ayato, and Noro. Our MC is now officially playing for the other team. In the next episode, called Dancing Flowers, we get a flashback to when the CCG first faced the One-Eyed Owl. A young Kureo Mado and Commander Shinohara step up to face the legendary ghoul. Mado actually lost his wife to the One-Eyed Owl, so now he steps up to fight for revenge. But before Mado can do anything, Special Class Ghoul Investigator Arima, this guy with the blue hair, steps in and goes at it with the owl. Remember this guy, cause we'll be talking about this legend real soon. After this flashback, we join the CCG in a meeting at their headquarters. The CCG Bureau Director Yoshitoki Washu informs everyone present of how the Aogiri Tree insurgency has spread across the country. Since taking over the 11th Ward, the Aogiri insurgents now have control over the 9th and 10th Wards. Yoshitoki also lets them know that the Aogiri takeover is being led by a ghoul with an eye patch mask. Of course, this ghoul is none other than our boy Kaneki, but the CCG doesn't know this yet. The top priority of the CCG now is to wipe out the Aogiri tree and exterminate the owl. Oh, and after the meeting, Shinohara meets the CCG's newest part-timer, and it's none other than Hide. Yikes. Back at Enteku, things are slowly getting back to normal. As the Enteku squad cleans up the cafe, Tuka is noticeably absent. That's because she is now studying for her entrance exams to go to college. Turns out, Tuka has decided to apply for Kami University, which is Kaneki's old college. Coincidence? I think not. And speaking of Tuka, her life isn't fully back to normal yet. As she exits the bathroom at school, she notices that a group of students are talking about a ghoul evacuation drill for the campus. Thanks to Kaneki and his new Aogiri tree buddies taking over the 9th and 10th Ward, the school is on high alert. This, of course, causes the students to hate ghouls even more, and reminds Tuka that Kaneki is no longer around. And speak of the devil, we catch up to Kaneki in the middle of a crime. A scared CCG investigator holds his breath as Kaneki stands over his dead colleagues. As the investigator tries to stay quiet, Kaneki notices him hiding behind a desk. But before Kaneki does anything else, Ayato comes in, and the pair of ghouls head out to another location. Given the recent loss of territories, the CCG is in urgent need of reinforcements. A whole bunch of top-level investigators have been called into the CCG headquarters to help. Among the newcomers is a weird little guy with stitch tattoos. His name is Juzo. But don't let that squeaky little voice fool you. Juzo is a straight-up badass. However, he can be a little bit creepy, which pisses off his deskmate Takizawa, who is also a new investigator.
You're supposed to be an investigator. Try to act like one.
Amon also receives a new partner called Akira Mado. She's the daughter of Amon's late partner and mentor, Kureo Mado. The two accidentally meet at Mato's grave, where Amon has been coming regularly to brief his former partner on the current state of the battle against ghouls. That's so sweet. Even though Amon isn't very pleased at first with his new partner, he promises to look out for her because of his respect for her dad Kureya. In the next episode, titled Hangman, we see Kaneki and Ayato in action as they try to rescue Naki, this guy, as he is being transported to Cochlea, the CCG's supermax prison for ghouls. Naki is a part of Yamori's team called the White Suits, but now that Yamori is dead, the leadership position actually falls on Naki. The reason Naki is being freed by the Aogiri faction is because they want to strengthen their crew. In fact, they intend to go around freeing different ghouls who have been locked up by the CCG. As Kaneki and Ayato are busting Nanaki out from the armored van, Kaneki gets attacked by the Yasuhisa twins. The black-haired girl is Kurona, and the white-haired girl is Nashiro. The twins are intrigued by Kaneki's strength. They too are half-ghouls like Kaneki, but before he can ask them anything about it, they disappear. Meanwhile, at Enteku, Hinami asks about Kaneki after seeing him spread chaos on the news. So, to take Hinami's mind off of the situation, Tuka allows her to go to a Sen Takatsuki book signing event. Hinami is so excited, because Takatsuki is like her favorite author. This gives Tuka some time of her own to go and tour the campus of her dream college, Kami University. Here, she meets Hide, who is busy taking down Kaneki's missing person flyers. The two have a warm chat about Kaneki and how he grew up. But Hide is doing more than just removing flyers. While at his part-time job at the CCG, he's doing his own investigation into where Kaneki might be and what info the authorities have on him. This is when Hide finds out that the CCG have nicknamed Kaneki as the Eye Patch Ghoul. But Akira becomes suspicious of why Hide is so interested in ghouls even though he is an investigator. So Hide laughs it off and scrams before Akira can question him anymore. We also learn that Tsukiyama is still on the hunt for Kaneki, so much so that he's infiltrated the Aogiri tree. When he hears rumors that Kaneki freaking cannibalized Yamori, he gets so excited that he blows his own cover. The episode ends with the CCG discussing theories on the Eye Patch Ghoul, recalling the accident from months ago involving Kaneki and an unknown woman. They find it very odd that both Kaneki and the doctor who performed the organ transplant to save his life have both disappeared. The next episode is called Deeper Layers. Amon and Akira go to Cochlea prison to question a ghoul named Donato Popora about the one-eyed owl. Donato was Amon's foster father and used to run a Catholic orphanage. But Donato was far from a man of God. He actually used to eat the kids under his care and pretend that they went missing. Jeez, what a monster! Amon sadly discovered this truth way too young and it scarred him for life. This is also the reason Amon hates ghouls so much. Donato doesn't intend to cooperate during this interview though. But just as Amon and Akira are about to leave, the Aogiri tree begins a full-scale attack on Cochlea to release all its inmates. Eto, Tatara, Noro, Kaneki, and Ayato are leading the attack, killing anyone and everyone in their way. Amon and Akira have no choice but to hide and try to escape, but they don't get far before they are cornered by Naki and his team of white suits, as well as some newly freed inmates. Meanwhile, Kaneki goes off to find and free an inmate called Shachi Kamashiro, the ghoul who was Rize's foster dad. But Shachi is kind of a meathead. He tells Kaneki that he can't trust him, especially because he can smell Rize's scent on him. So Shachi feeds Kaneki a knuckle sandwich. God damn! Further down in the prison, Amon and Akira aren't doing much better. Naki and his guys split up to fight Amon and Akira separately. As Amon defends himself from the lackeys, Naki manages to knock Akira to the ground and take a quick bite. Even as Amon ends up rescuing her, it's pretty clear the CCG guys and the prison guards are getting their asses handed to them. While this is happening, Shinohara makes an unexpected appearance in the Cochlea prison. Upon sighting him, Ayato greets him with a barrage of deadly Kagune projectiles. As they trade kicks and punches, Shinohara realizes that he won't be able to hold off Ayato with just his Quinke. So he busts out the good old Arata armor. This surprises Ayato. Not that he is impressed by the suit, but because the Kagune used to make Shinohara's Arata belonged to Ayato's late father. Yeah, that's gotta hurt. The following episode is called Rift, and we get a flashback of when Amon gave a lecture to a group of students at the CCG Junior Academy. Here, we see Kurona and Nashiro, the half-ghoul twin sisters, with their friend Shizuku Kawakami listening carefully to everything Amon is saying. Sadly, soon after Amon's lecture at the academy, Shizuku dies from a strange illness. But Juzo, who was also a student at the academy, doesn't bother to attend the funeral. So when Kurona and Nashiro confront Juzo about not attending, He brushes them off as if he doesn't care, even though he kind of does. This ends up causing the twins to hold a grudge against Juzo. Now back to the present, Juzo runs into the twins as they are invading Cochlea, and it feels like the right time to settle old scores. But Juzo is a freaking powerhouse, fighting the two sisters all at once, even without his Quinke. He stabs Kurona in the eye and pokes her with a bunch of knives. Ooh, ouch. As for Nashiro, she gets a deep gash for trying to save her sister. You just can't help but feel sorry for them. Meanwhile, Shinohara is proving to be much more than Ayato bargained for. The CCG commander is kicking his ass with ease. But at some point, as Ayato runs up to counterattack, Shinohara's Arata begins to resist hitting Ayato, almost as if Ayato's dad's Kagune could sense it was attacking his son. Still, Shinohara is a tank. He simply uses his Quinke to smack Ayato into submission. Juzo, on the other hand, is much more happy to slice and dice the Yasuhisa twins. As Kurana runs up to hold her dying sister's hand, Juzo slices Nashiro's hand right off. Yeah, Juzo is proving to be an unstoppable force. But before he can end them both, Kurona grabs her sister and runs like hell. As Shinohara looks on in pity, Ayato collapses in front of him. But before Shinohara can even begin to process what is happening, Kaneki swoops in to save the day. But there's something obviously different about his appearance. He's changed into a half Kakuja with a bird beak. In other words, this ain't even his final form. Kaneki proceeds to take Ayato to safety and then starts attacking Shinohara. Still, Shinohara ain't no slouch either, and after taking a few hits from Kaneki, he manages to use his Quinke and slice up Kaneki's back. Ordinarily, that would have done the trick, but Kaneki is in full psycho mode and has lost all control over himself. So now that Kaneki is almost insane, we get a glimpse at just how strong he really is. And unfortunately for Shinohara, he gets the first-hand experience. Elsewhere, as Amon helps an injured Akira to safety, they stumble upon the Yasuhisa twins in an alleyway. Amon recognizes them from the junior academy, but Kurona quickly disappears into the dark with her sister. As Amon walks with Akira, trying to process what caused the twins to switch into ghouls, the prison officials are finally able to release RC gas, which strips ghouls of their powers. Now that's a relief. But as Amon is getting his hopes up, he sees Kaneki, still in half Kakuja form, eating Shinohara's Arata while the commander lies unconscious. As Amon starts attacking Kaneki, he's low-key disappointed because he thought Kaneki was different from the other ghouls. After Amon starts calling him a murderous monster, Kaneki starts crying uncontrollably. Reality hits our MC as he realizes the monster he has allowed himself to become. Within seconds, the one-eyed owl makes his appearance through the RC fog. Luckily for Amon and Akira, the owl is just here to pick up Kaneki and Ayato before disappearing almost as soon as he arrives. The 6th episode is called 1000 Paths, and Kaneki's having a pretty tough time. Ever since he unlocked his Kakuja form, he simply can't control it. It randomly goes off, causing him great pain, and leaves everything around him in ruins. And thanks to his latest rampage, his name is everywhere. Even Tuka, who's just trying to study for her school entrance exams, can't escape the constant eye patch gossip. In a zoo, we see that Juzu has been spending some time alone, just chilling. He sees a family, and it triggers some dark memories. We flash back to his awful childhood as a human pet in Ghoul Fight Club, a project run by a fat psychopath often referred to as Big Madam. Here, Juzu earned rewards for being a good little torturer. He was saved when CCG raided the place, though the other investigators wanted nothing to do with him. But Shinohara saw something in him and took him in as a partner. Back in the present, Juzu and Shinohara make small talk about death and how scary the owl is. Juzu's totally unfazed by the idea of dying, but Shinohara says that he'd be very sad if he'd lost him. It's such a weirdly sweet moment. Meanwhile, Amon and Akira find themselves alone in a bar. After a few drinks, Akira unloads all her emotional baggage. Her parents were killed by ghouls, the CCG never gave her dad proper credit, and she even blames herself. And Amon for his death. Amon admits fault but promises to protect her as her mentor's daughter. After Akira passes out from all the drinking, Amon takes her home and tries to take care of her. But when she stirs in her sleep and calls out, "Dad," Amon thinks she's coming on to him. Mortified, he punishes himself by doing push-ups all night on her balcony in shame. Okay. The next morning, Akira calls him a perv, then apologizes for being such a mess. I'm kinda shipping these two now. The next episode is called Permeation. Tsukiyama shows up at the Enteku Cafe to speak to Yoshimura. Tsukiyama informs Yoshimura about the reports of Kaneki's cannibalism. It turns out, Yoshimura has been using Tsukiyama to keep tabs on Kaneki, which Tsukiyama doesn't mind, of course. Anything to be close to his sweet Kaneki, as he calls him. As Tsukiyama is leaving, Hinami, who has been worried for Kaneki for weeks, asks Tsukiyama if Kaneki will be okay. Sensing that Hinami is fearing the worst, Tsukiyama offers to take her out for coffee so she can take her mind off things. After some bonding time at the coffee shop, Tsukiyama goes to the bathroom while Hinami gets a surprise visit from her favorite author, Sen Takatsuki. After Hinami had gone to the book signing, she and Takatsuki have become somewhat friends now. Takatsuki then asks Hinami what was on her mind. So Hinami spills the beans about Kaneki. Hinami explains how much she misses Kaneki but isn't sure how to help him, to which Takatsuki bluntly tells her that there isn't anything she can do. This hurts Hinami a little, but ultimately helps her to not feel so depressed about the situation. But Takatsuki is more than meets the eye. After talking with Hinami, Takatsuki visits the CCG headquarters pretending to ask Shinohara about ghouls for her upcoming book. But what she's actually here for is to tell Shinohara about the rumors she heard of Enteiku being a ghoul hideout. Now that's the kind of info Shinohara has been searching for. Meanwhile, Enteiku gets its most surprising visitor of all. Talk about a dramatic entrance. Anyways, it seems Hinami's prayers are answered, because she comes back to Enteiku shortly after Kaneki arrives. Hinami doesn't waste any time in finding Tuka at school and telling her that Kaneki is back. The news makes Tuka jump right out of her seat and run straight back to Enteiku. She manages to catch up to Kaneki as he is leaving. Kaneki then reveals to her that he joined Aogiri so that he can get stronger to protect his friends at Enteiku. But Tuka isn't buying any of it and tells Kaneki to go to hell. In reality, Tuka is just upset that Kaneki allowed his dark side to take over completely. After that, Shinohara and Juzu decide to pay a visit to Enteiku. While sipping on coffee, Shinohara casually asks Yoshimura about Kaneki's whereabouts. Even though Yoshimura plays it cool, Shinohara just can't shake his suspicion that the old man in front of him is hiding something. As they leave, he tells Juzu they'll be back soon. In the next episode, titled Old Nines, we get to hear the conversation Kaneki had with Yoshimura at Enteiku. Kaneki gets straight to business and asks Yoshimura about the one-eyed owl. Yoshimura tells him a tragic story about a powerful ghoul named Kuzin, a lone wolf who survived by killing, a monster so ruthless that he got recruited by a shady organization to be their hitman. But under all that violence, Kuzin was just lonely. That changed when he met a kind waitress named Ukina. Even after learning he was a ghoul, she accepted him with open arms. Instead of eating her, Kuzin fell in love. They built a life together, and against all odds, Ukina got pregnant. Yikes. Kuzin warned her about the risk of a human and a ghoul having a child, but Ukina believed in miracles, and sure enough, she gave birth to a healthy, one-eyed baby. Unfortunately, Kuzin's old bosses didn't like this family dream of his, so they hunted them down, killed Ukina, and forced Kuzin to hide the baby while he went berserk on their attackers. When he came back, the baby was gone. Years later, that missing child returned as the one-eyed owl, full of rage and hatred for the world. After that, Yoshimura admits that the owl is his child. Dang! Back at Enteiku, life goes on like usual. Tuka hasn't returned to work yet, focusing on school and college plans with her bestie Yoriko. After running into Kaneki recently, she feels a bit more at peace. When she finally comes back to the cafe, it's bustling with customers. But the workers can handle it. One of the workers, Koma, jokes that if it gets out of hand, they'll call in the ultimate weapon, which turns out to be Yomo, who used to work there. After closing shop, Tuka and Hinami pack their things. They're moving in with Yomo while Enteiku gets a makeover. But before heading out, Yomo checks in with Yoshimura, and though we don't hear what they discussed, the news doesn't look good. Later that night, while CCG officers are sniffing the area, Shinohara makes a surprise visit to Enteiku. Yoshimura lets him in, and they share a quiet cup of coffee. After a short conversation, Shinohara calls it a night. Once he's gone, Koma and a co-worker Irimi pop in and say their work is done, whatever that means. Yoshimura, looking out the window, talks to Ukina's memory, mourning that his wish for a peaceful life didn't come true. Elsewhere, CCG bigwigs are already working on a top-secret operation to take down the owl, and their first target is clear. Enteiku is about to become Ground Zero. The next episode is called City in Waiting. The CCG finally has the green light to launch a full-blown mission to wipe out the one-eyed owl. But before heading into battle, the investigators take a quiet moment to write their possible last words. Yeah, things are getting that serious. Amon swings by a grave to pay respects to a fallen friend. He then runs into Akira, who's visiting her dad's grave. She opens up about her parents' past. Way back in the 24th Ward, her mom and dad's squad ran into the owl and were way out of their league. They retreated, but her mom stayed behind to buy them time, and paid the ultimate price. Since then, her dad obsessed over the owl. Now, Akira's inherited that grudge like it's a family curse. Anyway, the day is finally here. CCG squads roll out under the cover of night and descend on Enteku like it's D-Day. But they're met by a surprise welcome party. Koma and Arimi, with help from their old gang buddies, the Apes and the Black Dobers, lay a massive ambush. Meanwhile, Yoshimura steps out front like a boss, and he takes on the form of the one-eyed owl. This is the so-called leader of the Aogiri tree. Or so everyone thinks. He starts tearing through waves of CCG grunts with terrifying ease. Just as things are heating up, Shinohara and Kuroiwa show up in full Arata armor, realizing that the monster that they're facing is none other than the kindly cafe manager. Oopsie. At Yomo's, Tuka sees the 20th Ward lighting up on the news and tries to sneak out to help, but Yomo catches her. He explains that Yoshimura, Koma, and Irimi all chose to fight as punishment for their past sins, and that Tuka isn't meant to follow them. But Tuka, feeling guilty for her own kills, can't sit this one out. She runs off, determined not to lose anyone else she cares about. Then, we switch to a rooftop, where Kaneki is gearing up for battle. He is joined by Nishio, who lets him know Tuka and Hinami are safe. Kaneki tries to apologize for dragging him into this mess, but Nishio brushes it off. He's got his own plans. One last visit to his girl, then he's out. Suddenly, Tsukiyama shows up, dramatic as ever, sobbing and begging Kaneki not to go on his suicide mission. Kaneki simply knocks him out of the way. His mind is made up and he's done watching from the sidelines. The following episode is called Last Reign, and the battle between CCG and Enteku is raging on. Koma leads the Apes, while Irimi leads the Black Dobers, each facing off against superpowered CCG commanders who clearly didn't come to play. After a brutal back and forth, Koma's opponent fakes him out with a sneaky move and Koma gets bodied. Meanwhile, Irimi spots a random old lady behind her who apparently missed the memo to evacuate. One of the commanders doesn't care and fires projectiles in their direction anyway, putting Granny's life in danger. Irimi jumps in to protect her, takes a beating, and hits the ground hard. Just when it seems like both are down for the count, Kaneki yeets both Koma and Irimi out of the danger zone. On top of a skyscraper, Yoshimura is still going solo against a stacked CCG lineup. Shinohara, Kuroiwa, Juzu, and more. He's holding his own for a while, but after taking some massive hits, he finally crashes to the ground. As he crawls away, barely conscious, he starts hallucinating his wife Ukina. The CCG thinks they've done it. The owl is down. Victory music, fist pumps, maybe even a group photo. But hold on. Out of nowhere, the real one-eyed owl swoops down right in front of Shinohara's group. The celebration hits a brick wall and everyone suddenly realizes they've been fighting the wrong owl this whole time. Oh. The next episode is called Deluge of Flowers. It's immediately obvious that the CCG officers around don't stand a chance against the owl. With Shinohara down and barely clinging to life, Juzu is left alone to face this monster. And for the first time since his introduction, you can see the feeling of sheer terror in his eyes. As that's happening, the Aogiri squad also shows up to crash the party. Turning the battlefield into absolute chaos, the CCG is getting overwhelmed. Elsewhere, Kaneki runs into Amon, who's standing between him and Enteku. They throw hands, and it's clear they're evenly matched. Kaneki tries to be the peace guy, saying they shouldn't be fighting and that they both probably had a lot to talk about if things were different. But Amon basically says, "Too bad, that's not the world we live in," and charges again. Kaneki and Amon both end up bruised and worn out, their battle ending in mutual destruction. Juzu, meanwhile, is still getting beat down by the owl. His attacks are useless. Just when it looks like game over, Arima drops in like a calm silver-haired storm. Remember this guy? Yeah, he's the same blue-haired officer who fought the owl in Mado's flashback. This time, he pulled a Kaneki with that hair transformation. But he's not here to just look badass, he's here to give the owl a really difficult time. Arima dodges the owl's attack with style, slashes him up with ease, and cuts off his arm without even breaking a sweat. The owl panics, swallows Yoshimura, swallows him whole, and then flies away. Kaneki, bloody but determined, limps towards Enteku, hoping he's not too late. Nearby, Akira stumbles upon Amon's broken quinque and her heart sinks. And finally, in the last shocking twist of the episode, the owl coughs up Yoshimura and shapeshifts back into their human form, revealing that the one-eyed owl is none other than Sen Takatsuki herself. She basically has 3 different identities now. To humans, she's Sen Takatsuki, an amazing author. To Aogiri, she's Eto. To the CCG, she's the One-Eyed Owl. Talk about a personality disorder. The last episode of Season 2 is called Ken. At long last, Kaneki and his childhood friend Hide reunite inside Antegu. As Kaneki tries to hide his Kakugan, Hide casually reveals that he knew Kaneki was a ghoul this whole time, and it's no big deal. What really hurt him was that Kaneki suddenly stopped hanging out with him. Kaneki listens, stunned, but their chat is cut short when Hide suddenly collapses. Turns out he's been hiding some serious injuries. Just then, Tuka shows up and sees the cafe in flames, and finds Kaneki carrying Hide's unconscious body through the wreckage. Kaneki walks through the aftermath of the war zone, eyes heavy with sadness, and then faces Investigator Arima, the ultimate CCG Reaper, all alone. Whether it's to hand over Hide and surrender, or to fight some more, we have no idea. Time skips forward. Tuka is seen opening a new cafe with a clean new name, Rize. The battles, the pain, the memories, they're behind her now. And with that, Season 2 comes to an end. We head straight into Season 3, but the storyline isn't where we left it last season. You see, Season 2 doesn't only deviate from the manga, it also condenses a lot of the story into a few episodes. So here is some lore to keep in mind going into Season 3. Investigator Amon is killed in his fight with Kaneki, and Shinohara is badly injured by Takatsuki, who is the real One-Eyed Owl and also Yoshimura's daughter. After Kaneki delivers Hide to Investigator Arima, it's assumed Kaneki is captured by the CCG and rehabilitated. During this time, Kaneki loses his memories and is given a new identity by the CCG. His new name is Heisei Sasaki. To keep things simple, I'll stick to calling him Sasaki for plot reasons. Okay, now let's continue. The first episode of Season 3 is called Start, Those Who Hunt, and we're introduced to the CCG's Quink Squad. This new group of diehard CCG officers are built different. Literally. The CCG is now surgically implanting Ghoul Kagune into their officers. This is likely because they've studied how Sasaki became a half-ghoul, which kinda explains why the CCG made him the leader of the Quink Squad. Alright, so the Quink Squad is out hunting a super creepy ghoul called Torso. This guy has a twisted thing for eating only the torsos of women and leaving the rest behind. Lovely, right? Ugh. Leading the mission is Kuki Yuri, the Quink's captain who takes himself way too seriously, and his partner, Ginshi Shirazu, who's more bark than bite. While investigating, they run into this eccentric photographer named Chie Hori. She casually drops an important lead. Torso is actually working as a taxi driver. She gives them this lead in exchange for a very personal item belonging to Sasaki. Meanwhile, Toru Mutsuki, another squad member, ends up finding Torso first, and things go south really fast. Toru gets attacked, and that kicks Fuki and Ginshi into action. They set up this big roadblock to catch Torso, and it almost works. But then out of nowhere, this guy shows up. Serpent. This powerful ghoul crashes the party, wipes the officers like it's nothing, and Torso gets away clean. Just as the situation spirals out of control, Sasaki steps in to fight Serpent. However, he starts hallucinating his old self, his Ken Kaneki self. That suppressed memory of his former self starts whispering all kinds of dark thoughts into his head. It's like a full-on mental breakdown mid-battle. The pressure pushes Sasaki to his limit and he finally snaps, unleashing his Kagune. The next episode is titled Member Fragments. After using his Kagune to attack, Sasaki rips off Serpent's mask, only to find out it's someone from his past. Turns out Serpent is actually Nishio, and although Sasaki doesn't fully remember him, Nishio casually drops a bomb by calling him Kaneki. Just like that, Sasaki's brain short-circuits. A flood of buried memories slams into him, and he starts losing it, practically ready to attack his own team. We then begin to see him being tormented mentally by Kaneki, in the same way Kaneki was tormented by Rize in Season 1. Thankfully, Akira Mado shows up and hits him with a tranquilizer. Once Sasaki chills out and comes back to his senses, he shakes things up in the Quink Squad. He throws Kuki out of the captain's seat for insubordination. Kuki has been acting up lately because he feels he's not living up to his true potential. Sasaki hands the captain title over to Ginshi, the loud but well-meaning blowhard. Later, Sasaki trains with his boss/mentor Arima, and admits that he is spooked by his old Kaneki memories creeping back in like bad dreams. Arima doesn't want to talk about all that, so he changes topic. Meanwhile, our torso-loving creep, Torso, gets recruited by Ayato to join the Aogiri tree. Torso's all in. not because he cares about the cause, but because it gives him a shot at capturing poor Toru, who he's creepily obsessed with now. On the CCG side, Sasaki, Ginji, and Toru are now chasing down another psycho ghoul called Nutcracker, who has a rather painful signature move. She works in the red light district and likes to crack the nuts of her victims. Good lord, ow! While taking a break, they stop by this cozy little cafe called Rize, run by none other than Tuka. Sasaki walks in, locks eyes with Tuka, and his soul practically screams, "I know her." After just a single sip of her coffee, he starts crying without even knowing why. He also can't stop thinking about how she might be the most beautiful person he's ever seen. Let's just say the coffee wasn't the only thing brewing. Episode 3 is called Fresh Eve. In the opening scene, Rosewald, Tsukiyama's dramatic, ultra-loyal assistant, shows up with a very special gift, Sasaki's underwear. It's the personal item that was collected by none other than the photographer, Chie Hori. Being the creep that he is, Tsukiyama sniffs it and is crushed because he didn't recognize the scent as Kaneki's. Yeah, like, that's the thing to be disappointed about when you sniff somebody's underwear. Meanwhile, Quink Squad is still on the Nutcracker case. They finally managed to drag another member, the lazy gamer called Psycho, out of her room. And the team links up with Juzu and his crew. They all learn that Nutcracker hangs out at a sketchy underground nightclub, so they plan to infiltrate. From their report, the Nutcracker is involved in the human trafficking business, so the male members of the squad have to cross-dress to gain her attention. And yes, it's just as awkward and hilarious as it sounds. On his part, Kuki skips the field trip to do some top-secret testing on his new and improved Kagune. He really wants to be as powerful as his big boss Kaneki. Inside the nightclub, things get even weirder. We see two members of the Clowns, a deadly ghoul faction that wears clown masks, Nico and Roma Hoito. They spot Sasaki and instantly recognize him as Kaneki, but they're low-key disappointed. Roma sighs that this is a soft version of Kaneki and is boring, and wonders aloud if a little death might bring the real Kaneki back. Back on the mission, a drunk Toru flirts her way into Nutcracker's trust and scores an invite to the ghoul auction, where humans are sold to ghouls like groceries at the supermarket. Meanwhile, Aogiri trees got their eyes on the ghoul auction as well. Eto tells Ayato to act as bodyguard for Big Madam, the same fat psychopath we first met in Juzu's flashback. Ayato agrees, reluctantly, and drags along creepy Torso, who's still obsessed with Toru like a crazy stalker. The next episode, Main Auction, takes us deep into the twisted world of the ghoul black market, and it's just as wild and horrifying as you'd expect. The show kicks off with 3 clown ghouls acting like auctioneers at a very creepy ghoul gathering. First item on the list, an A-list celebrity. The crowd goes wild. But the next item is even more shocking. It's Toru Mutsuki, drugged and tied up on stage. Last he remembers, he was chilling in a taxi with Nutcracker. Torso, who's unhealthily obsessed with Toru, completely loses it when he sees him on display. Big Madam's got her eyes locked on him too, and isn't planning to back down, no matter the cost. Even Rosewald thinks buying this rare one-eyed ghoul might finally snap Tsukiyama out of his Kaneki-induced depression. Bidding war begins, and Big Madam snags Toru for a cool 200 million yen like it's pocket change. Then comes the third auction item, a sweet-looking girl. But as she's about to be auctioned off, she pulls out knives and absolutely shreds one of the clown MC's face before hurling blades into the crowd. Absolute chaos erupts. Upon realizing that the CCG is crashing the party, everyone panics. Big Madam takes a good look at the knife-wielding woman and realizes it's Juzu, the kid she used to torment.
Let's get out of here, madam! What is Juzo doing here?
And what she doesn't know is that she's the main target of this operation. Meanwhile, Toru takes the opportunity to slip away, but before he can get too far, he runs into Rosewald, who tries to snatch him back as a gift for Tsukiyama. Enter Torso, who leaps in to save Toru, but ends up getting wrecked by Rosewald. Toru keeps running. As the auction spirals into chaos, Eto watches from far away with her fellow Aogiri big shots. With a sinister smile, she decides it's time to enter the fray. Things are about to get even bloodier. The next episode is called Press, Night of Scattering. Toru is wandering the hallways, still hurting from the earlier attack by Rosewald. Rosewald catches up and realizes something truly fascinating. Toru's wounds have completely healed, which means his master Tsukiyama can eat Toru again and again. Damn. Rosewald lunges forward, but just in time, Sasaki swoops in to save Toru. A full-on brawl breaks out. Sasaki, Kuki, and Ginji tag team Rosewald while Psycho shields Toru. Meanwhile, a familiar character is wreaking havoc in the building. Remember Takizawa from Season 2? He was reported dead by the CCG after the battle against the One-Eyed Owl, but he's actually alive and a one-eyed ghoul now. Time skip shenanigans. He's also one of the big shots in the Aogiri, and let's just say he's way different from his human self. He's cleaving people's heads off left and right, and terrorizing his former co-workers. Back with the Quink Squad, they actually managed to knock out Rosewald, but before they can finish him off, Rosewald gets saved by another ghoul friend of his, and the two escape. Man, people in this show need to start committing when they knock people out. Like, you can't just sit there and do nothing. Meanwhile, Nutcracker straight up wrecks the CCG squad that was sent after her. By wrecked, I mean everyone got completely wiped out. So now it's up to the Quink Squad to stop Nutcracker. While Toru and Kuki sneak off to track down more ghouls, Kuki starts going too hyped up and feral, unleashing his Kagune like a madman on everyone in sight, but loses control and ends up facing Big Madam. She claps him, pretty badly actually. Toru rushes in just in time to see Kuki about to become Big Madam's dinner, and just when you think that's it, Ginshi and Saiko run into none other than Takizawa. And luckily, Sasaki also appears and activates his Kagune, ready to throw hands with another one-eyed ghoul. The next episode is called Turn in the End. As the fight continues between the two one-eyed ghouls, it becomes pretty clear that Sasaki is getting absolutely clobbered. And just when you think things can't get worse, Sasaki starts hallucinating Ken Kaneki again. Yeah, that guy. His other self is clawing back, and it's making the fight a mental mess. Meanwhile, over on the Quink side of things, Ginshi and Saiko finally take down the deadly Nutcracker in a combo attack. Elsewhere, Big Madam is having her own battle against Kuki and Toru. Kuki gets so overwhelmed that he snaps, accidentally stabbing Toru in a wild mix of grief and rage. But instead of freaking out, Toru calmly wraps Kuki in his Kagune, telling him that it's okay and everything will be fine. As Big Madam is about to attack, Juzu shows up with other CCG officers. Now, this should be Juzu's revenge moment, right? You'd think so, but he just can't get himself to attack her, even going as far as saying he harbors no resentment towards her. Luckily, the other CCG officers swoop in and finish Big Madam for good. After that's over, we see this weird, mysterious ghoul wearing a mask. Let's call him Scarecrow, just wandering around the auction building. He stumbles into the control room and starts pressing random buttons. Unfortunately, one of them is the building-wide intercom, and suddenly, everyone can hear Sasaki's painful screams echoing through the halls. Damn. Hinami is also here, and after hearing it, she immediately rushes towards the source. She's now a member of Aogiri, having left Anteku 2 years ago. Although Sasaki doesn't recognize her, she doesn't hesitate. She jumps into the fight, taking on Takizawa to protect Sasaki. This is the breaking point for Sasaki. Hearing his friends and remembering his pain, he finally accepts that he is Kaneki. He and Takizawa clash in a brutal Kagune versus Kagune battle, both of them impaling each other in a violent poetic ending. They both collapse, bloodied and broken. And with that, the auction war is all but over. The next episode is called Mind, Days of Recollection. Hinami's luck runs out when Investigator Arima's squad swoops in and arrests her. She's about to be executed until Sasaki makes a last-minute plea that saves her life. So, instead of the chopping block, Hinami gets a one-way ticket to Cochlea Prison. A few weeks go by, and things start looking up for the Quink Squad. Everyone's getting promoted, with Sasaki now upgraded to Senior Investigator. That same night, Sasaki receives a little gift box. Kaneki's old mask and a signed copy of Sen Takatsuki's book. Disturbed and confused, Sasaki wanders into the Rize Cafe, where Tuka casually serves him coffee like it's just another Tuesday. Sasaki doesn't recognize her, but something about that cup hits really hard. He then dives deep into investigating this Kaneki guy. He even has a vision of Yoshimura and Anteku. His old life is knocking louder than ever. The next episode is titled Take, One Who Writhes, and Tsukiyama is in rough shape. No matter how many humans he devours, the hunger just won't go away. And now, his Kagune is completely out of control. Rosewald is getting increasingly worried and would do anything to help his master. Meanwhile, Ayato is trying to convince Tatora to let him rescue Hinami from Cochlea Prison, but Tatora denies his request without a second thought. Aogiri Tree is no longer in the business of rescue missions apparently. Back at the CCG, Sasaki is pulled aside by two investigators, the suspicious-looking Nimura Furuta and the intense, smiley-faced Shiki Kijima. They inform him that he'll be part of the upcoming Rose investigation, which targets a dangerous group of ghouls. At headquarters, Sasaki and the Quink Squad are briefed on their next mission. Their mission is to track down the Rose Gang, a group of ghouls secretly tied to the powerful Tsukiyama family. Not long after, the Rose Ghouls launch a surprise attack on investigators Furuta and Kijima. but the two are rescued just in time by a skilled pink-haired investigator called Hairu Ihei. During the chaos, one of the Rose Ghouls named Yuma is captured and sent to Cochlea, where Kijima intends on torturing him for information. Still searching for clues about his past, Sasaki visits Uta to ask about Kaneki's old mask and the mysterious book by Sen Takatsuki. Uta plays it cool, dodges the questions, and agrees to craft a new mask for him. Elsewhere, the photographer Chie Hori, hoping to help Tsukiyama's deteriorating situation, delivers some recent photos of Sasaki. When Tsukiyama sees them, he immediately recognizes the man in the pictures, not as Heisei Sasaki, but as Ken Kaneki. And that changes everything. The following episode is called Play Ghost. Shu Tsukiyama finds out the shocking truth. Ken Kaneki is still alive, living as Heisei Sasaki. Overcome with emotion, Tsukiyama bolts into the street and manages to get close to Sasaki before dramatically collapsing. Rosewald drags him back home, silently scolding him for doing something so reckless. Hoping to give Tsukiyama some alone time with Sasaki, Rosewald hires Aogiri Tree ghouls, including that creep Torso. Rosewald lures the Quinks into a park building, with Kuki and Ginchi chasing him upstairs. Sasaki, Toru, and Saiko rush in after them but get ambushed by Aogiri's thugs. Toru runs off to help the others but bumps into Torso again. He tells Saiko to hide and proceeds to slash Torso several times, causing the creep to react as one would expect. Meanwhile upstairs, Kuki and Ginji put the beat down on Rosewald. They come downstairs just in time to help Toru and see that Sasaki has already wiped out the entire squad of assailants. The next episode is called Think, Sway. Rosewald has the absolute misfortune of bumping into Eto, Tokyo's most chaotic ghoul gremlin. At first, Eto just messes with him like a cat playing with her food, but then she stops joking and unleashes her full power. In a twist of personal drama, we find out that Rosewald is hopelessly in love with Tsukiyama, but sadly, Tsukiyama doesn't feel the same way. So now the poor guy is stuck between heartbreak and homicidal thoughts, wishing he could just get rid of Sasaki. Or rather, Eto manipulates him into thinking that's what he really wants. Eto then captures him for her own messed up plans. Meanwhile, at CCG HQ, Sasaki is trying to pull off some ghoulish undercover work. He pitches a plan to his superior, Kori, and the plan involves him pretending to be a ghoul. To his utmost surprise, Kori actually agrees with this unconventional strategy. So that night, Sasaki puts on his legendary eye patch mask, yeah, Kaneki's mask, and heads out on patrol with the Quink squad. Right away, ghouls start freaking out, recognizing him as the infamous eye patch. Sasaki begins digging into Kaneki's past and discovers that eye patch was the ghoul rumored to have killed investigator Amon. That triggers another Kaneki hallucination, which really messes with Sasaki's head. Elsewhere, Tsukiyama meets with Sasaki again. Sasaki, now super suspicious, bluntly asks Tsukiyama if he's a ghoul and whether he knew Ken Kaneki. Being too cautious, Tsukiyama declines to give a straightforward answer. Over at the CCG, the Tsukiyama family has been linked to the Rose Ghouls who attacked Furata and Kijima. After Yuma's capture, others have also been either confined or outright killed. Kori is given the green light to wipe out the entire Tsukiyama family following a thorough investigation. And things begin to move very fast. That very night, Tsukiyama's father drugs him with some sleepy juice and tells a servant to take him far away to keep him out of the chaos. As the battle kicks off outside the Tsukiyama mansion, dear old dad peacefully turns himself in. The episode then ends with the scene of Rosewald being brutally tortured and mutilated by Eto, who is having way too much fun being a complete maniac. The next episode, called Right the Absent One, continues with the invasion of Tsukiyama properties. Sasaki, Kijima, Nimura Furuta, and the Quink squad are mowing down ghouls left and right as the CCG launches their full assault. Meanwhile, Tsukiyama is forced to say a tearful goodbye to his friends. They tell him to get to the rooftop where a helicopter is waiting to whisk him away to safety. Of course, he's not happy about running away, but he listens anyway. Kori joins the fight and decides to send Sasaki to that same rooftop. And guess who's already there? That's right, Tsukiyama. The two lock eyes, and Sasaki asks him to surrender. But Tsukiyama remains defiant and charges right at him. Elsewhere, Rosewald, who is now fully unhinged underneath a smiley mask, starts going berserk and slashing up CCG agents. Investigator Hairu tries to take a heroic last stand, but gets her head chopped off by a Rose Ghoul. Then Kijima shows up, all smiley as ever, only to have his own weapon turned against him, ending his life. Meanwhile, the Quink squad is about to get a reality check. They come face to face with the creepy regenerating ghoul Noro. In other words, members of the Aogiri are definitely getting involved. Back on the rooftop, Sasaki and Tsukiyama are in the middle of their emotional smackdown when Rosewald shows up and chops off Sasaki's hand. Ouch! Despite his injury, Sasaki pushes through and starts remembering all kinds of painful flashbacks. He manages to escape, and it's revealed that Rosewald is actually a woman named Karen who's been hiding her identity this whole time. Wow, can't judge a book by its cover, huh? The next episode is called Beautiful Dream, Dawn. Sasaki is still having a heated three-way match with Tsukiyama and Rosewald, until Eto, the one-eyed owl, drops in and throws everything into further chaos. She taunts Sasaki and then tells Rosewald to finish him off. When Rosewald attacks him, Sasaki's mind shatters and he dives into his own messed up subconscious. Inside his head, Kaneki shows up to trash talk him. Sasaki then unlocks traumatic memories of his abusive mom and realizes he's been trying to be loved by everyone. But now, he decides it's time to stop playing nice. He wakes up from the trance and rips off Rosewald's arm like a piece of clothing. He then impales Rosewald, or Karen, and then turns on Tsukiyama, stabbing him right in the chest. Eto watches this and is like, "Yup, Kaneki's awakened, alright." Meanwhile, Noro is still fighting the Quinks. Ginshi, desperate and fired up, activates his new Kagune and goes full throttle, teaming up with Kuki to finish Noro off. Noro's regenerative ability can only last so long. After taking a final combo attack, Noro gets obliterated, his final thoughts being a tender memory of Yoshimura leaving little Edo in his care. But this is no time to celebrate. Ginshi's been gravely wounded. His guts also got obliterated in that attack. His squad members gather around him in a panic. Despite every attempt to save his life, Ginshi dies quietly, breaking everyone's heart. After that, Sasaki confronts Eto and asks why she's even here. She shrugs and says she just wanted to watch the chaos unfold. Sasaki brings up her father Yoshimura's wish to save her, so much so that he used to pretend to be the one-eyed owl just to throw off the authorities. Eto laughs it off, but when Sasaki coldly says she's not worth saving, she snaps and transforms into an even scarier form, complete with too many eyes, mouths, and limbs. As they're fighting each other, Sasaki gains the upper hand and impales her Kagune, before slicing her clean in half. Quite savage. With that brutal finish, we can finally turn the page on the one-eyed owl. At least for now. Kori and his squad find Sasaki munching on Eto's Kagune remains. He plays it cool, saying he was badly injured and just needed a snack. He admits there's a connection between Aogiri and the Tsukiyamas. Then, just like that, he impales an already injured Tsukiyama and tosses him off the building. But Rosewald shows her undying loyalty until the very end. Catching him in mid-air, she confesses her love for him and apologizes for it. Tsukiyama accepts her feelings and calls her by her real name, Karen. Thanks to her sacrifice, Tsukiyama lives to fight another day. Finally, the episode closes at the graveyard, with the survivors of the battle mourning their dead. And that brings us to the end of Season 3. The first episode of Season 4 is called Place. And so, once again, this is the final season, so it's only right that Episode 1 starts off with something going completely wrong. The CCG are now planning to kill Hinami for no particular reason, and Kaneki hears about this from Investigator Furuta. Even though his memory is back, Kaneki is still playing along as Investigator Sasaki. He then hatches a plan to free Hinami, but before he can do that, something else gets all his attention. Eto Yoshimura, aka Sen Takatsuki, aka the One-Eyed Owl, makes a dramatic announcement to the whole world that she is a ghoul. The news comes right after Eto releases her last book, which talks about the One-Eyed King, who the CCG believe is the final boss of the Aogiri tree. This leads to Kaneki taking Eto into Koklea, the prison the CCG uses to hold its ghouls. As Kaneki is taking Eto to prison, Eto tells Kaneki about a secretive group called V that is pulling the strings from the dark. V aims to maintain a balance of the human and ghoul societies, and that means killing anyone who threatens this balance, like the Aogiri tree insurgents. Guess what V members all have in common? Yup, they're all ghouls. Kaneki also learns that the Washu clan that runs the CCG are all members of V. Before Kaneki leaves, Eto asks him to kill the One-Eyed King. Surprisingly, the One-Eyed King is the powerful investigator Arima. Meanwhile, as Kaneki is inside listening to Eto, Ayato, Banjo, and their squad are outside Koklea with a plan to rescue Hinami too. But before they can even make a move, the facility alarms go off, so they all just jump through the roof and the fighting begins. Episode 2, titled Volt White Darkness, picks up right where we left off at Koklea. As the Aogiri tree ghouls come flying through the roof, Kaneki slips away to go find Hinami and release her. Even though Hinami is happy to see Kaneki, she still slaps him, which is fair considering all this guy has done up until now. The CCG aren't letting this one slide though, so they send in the white-haired badass Inspector Arima himself to go handle business. This would have been bad news for Ayato if he had to face Arima alone, but luckily, Tuka and Yomo appear just in time to help. We then find out why Yomo has been so protective of Tuka and Ayato. It's because he's their damn uncle, and he wasn't able to protect his sister, their mother, so he will die in order to protect Ayato and Tuka. But Yomo just isn't a match for Arima's freakish speed and sense of direction. Just when things look over for Yomo, Kaneki jumps in to hand over Hinami to Tuka and then face off with his old mentor. The two go at each other's neck. Well, really, it's just Arima giving Kaneki the hands. It must be hard to fight someone you look up to, and Kaneki just doesn't have the guts to kill Arima. While Kaneki and Arima are fighting underground, somewhere upstairs, Eto has decided to break out of her cell and have some fun. This is when she runs into CCG investigator Furuta and his squad. Furuta's guys aren't much of a threat though, and soon he's on his knees begging for mercy. Or so it seems, until Eto gets close enough for him to attack her with his Kagune. Before Eto kicks the bucket, we get to see just how cunning Furuta really is. He seems not to care about V, or the Washu clan, or even the CCG. He's just doing whatever he wants. He openly admits that someone called Dr. Kano had operated on him using Rize's Kagune. So basically, he and Kaneki are using similar weapons. We then cut back to Kaneki's fight with Arima, and things aren't looking so good for Kaneki. After Arima knocks him out, Kaneki goes deep within his mind to find the motivation to push past his limits, which also causes his hair to go back to being white. After that, Kaneki goes after Arima so hard, Arima has no choice but to admit defeat. But Arima isn't a good loser, so he tries to terminate himself after the fight. The next episode is called Union, Cross Game. As Kaneki and his friends slug their way out of Kakuya, far away on the island Rushima, most of the Aogiri tree have their hands full with the rest of the CCG. Akira Mado and her team have been ordered by the CCG to kill Tatara due to his role as one of the leaders of the Aogiri tree. But Tatara is one of the strongest ghouls in Aogiri, and he plans on making the CCG realize that. That's up until help shows up from an unlikely source. Former CCG investigator Takizawa comes to their rescue, but he's now a ghoul and a little crazy to say the least. Takizawa hoped that by killing Tatara himself, Akira and her team would be happy with him. Instead, they try to take him out, which pisses off Takizawa. You know where this is going by now. So naturally, Takizawa kills Akira's entire squad and begins slowly torturing Akira. We then understand why Takizawa is like this. You see, Dr. Kano is responsible for creating half-breed ghouls like Kaneki and Furuta. After Takizawa was badly injured at the Anteku raid, Dr. Kano took him in and turned him into a half-breed without Takizawa's consent, and then performed tests on Takizawa until he lost his mind. So just as Takizawa is about to lose it on Akira, guess who spawns in to save the day? It's investigator Amon, and he's half-ghoul now because of course he is. Then the action cuts to Dr. Kano's lab. The mad scientist gets a visit from Kurona, one of the Yasuhisa twins. We learn that Kurona was one of the doctor's guinea pigs, but she isn't here to relitigate the past. She wants his help to bring her sister back to life. But when he refuses, Kurona decides to kill him instead for all of the pain he caused her and her twin sister growing up. Dr. Kano knew this day would come, so he is already prepared. As she goes to attack him, Dr. Kano releases all of the half-breed ghouls he has in the lab to attack Kurona. For a moment, his plan seems to work, until Nishio shows up to help put down Dr. Kano. Apparently, Nishio was doing his own investigation into Aogiri this entire time, and it led him right to Dr. Kano's office. But Dr. Kano still manages to escape thanks to the help of some ghouls sent over by the secret organization V. The next episode is called Vive, Those Left Behind. Back on Rushima Island, the fight between Amon and Takizawa gets interrupted by the Quink squad, who have orders to eliminate them both. Shockingly, Akira uses her body to block an attack heading in Takizawa's direction. This sacrificial act utterly confuses everyone, but Akira makes it clear that she cannot stand by and watch her former colleague get murked in front of her. Amon then tells Takizawa to escape with Akira, who's now unconscious, while he stays back and holds off the Quink squad. Meanwhile, at the CCG headquarters, senior investigator Marude has been doing his own private investigation into the Washu clan. After reading the last novel written by Sen Takatsuki, or Eto, Marude pieces together that the book is based on the Washu clan and their little secret, that secret being that they are all ghouls. So, Marude goes to test his theory by shooting the bureau director Yashitoki Washu to see if he is actually a ghoul, and sure enough, Yoshitoki jumps right back up and attacks Marude, who then kills him for good. While Marude is busy thanking his lucky stars, Kaneki is holding Arima in his arms as he dies. As he takes his last breath, Arima admits to Kaneki what he's been suspecting, that he is also a half-ghoul. So this kinda explains why Arima hasn't been able to keep up with almost every ghoul he has fought. However, unlike other half-ghouls, Arima doesn't possess ghoul abilities like having the red eyes or a Kagune. He then admits one last thing that turns Kaneki's brain upside down. Arima admits to Kaneki that he is the One-Eyed King. Basically, the One-Eyed King was just an idea that Arima and Eto came up with. You see, Arima actually hated the higher-ups at the CCG, so he and Eto conspired to build up this legend of the One-Eyed King. And now Arima wants Kaneki to let the world know that he, Kaneki, was the ghoul who killed the One-Eyed King. That way, there might be a beacon of hope for the ghouls and humans to coexist. Now that's a lot to take in. The next episode is called Move, Confluence and Confusion. Thankfully, things are starting to calm down a bit. After the fight with the CCG, Kaneki forms a group called GOAT, with the Aogiri members who survived, as well as his Anteku friends and Arima's team at the CCG. Kaneki wants both ghouls and humans to live peacefully together, which is what Arima wanted. While not everyone agrees at first, eventually it starts rubbing off on a few people. For example, Amon finally understands the struggles ghouls face now that he is one himself. This makes it easier for Kaneki and Amon to patch things up. Also, when Akira sees the little orphan children growing up under the custody of Aogiri, she finally realizes that the cycle of hatred and violence has to stop. She forgives Tuka for killing her dad, and Hinami forgives Akira for her dad killing both of Hinami's parents. That's sweet, I like it. The next episode is called Face Effulgence. And well, the peace was nice while it lasted. The episode opens up to one of Quink's squad members, Toru, being found in a cave after getting kidnapped and tortured by Torso, the infamous serial killer ghoul. After hoping Kaneki would come and save her, Toru is left wondering what happened to him after someone else from the CCG shows up and rescues her instead. This fuels hatred in Toru's heart for Kaneki, who is oblivious to the whole thing. While this is happening, the Quink squad are trying to come to terms with Kaneki killing Arima and becoming the One-Eyed King. This will have to wait though, because the clowns are back to cause havoc. But unlike that time at the Ghoul House auction, these clowns appear and start destroying the city for no good reason, which puts the CCG on high alert. This also causes the CCG to appoint Furuta as its new bureau director. Now, this guy's been suspicious since the very beginning, and you'll see why in a moment. Furuta wastes no time and orders some of the CCG squads to defend against the clowns while some stay back and protect the CCG headquarters. It soon becomes obvious that the attacks are too well coordinated, and it's discovered that Donato Porapora, aka Amon's ghoul adopted father, is remotely controlling the clowns. So, Kuki from the Quink squad squares up with Donato for an epic battle. But Donato is pretty tricky, and soon Kuki has no choice but to push beyond his ghoul limits just so he can stand a chance. This leads to him losing control, but luckily, Psycho is there to slap him back into his senses. Turns out the whole time, Donato was using his remote-controlled clone to fight Kuki, so that was kind of all for nothing. Back at the CCG headquarters, Juzu suddenly realizes that the entire clown attack was one big trick. The clowns aren't actually ghouls. They were normal people who had been kidnapped and dressed up as clowns with their mouths shut so they couldn't scream. This means the entire time the CCG had actually been killing innocent civilians, which will destroy the CCG's reputation if it comes out. And as suspected, Furuta is smiling from ear to ear as he watches his evil master plan come to life. But he has to keep pretending he actually wants the CCG to succeed. So after the clown attacks end, Furuta introduces a new Quink squad called the O-Guys, and has a live execution of the rest of the clowns in front of the entire CCG. Brutal. The following episode is called Proof, Bonds, and thank God the episode starts off way more peacefully. Love is in the air for the Anteku squad. The slow burner we have all been waiting for finally catches fire after Tuka asks Kaneki if he's a virgin. The question catches our boy off guard to say the least. Not as off guard as Toru catches them both though, when she storms into the cafe and demands to know why Kaneki abandoned the CCG, and, more importantly, why he hadn't come to save her in the cave. Toru doesn't wait long for an answer and immediately attacks Kaneki and Tuka. And if that wasn't enough, Toru then sends the O-Guy Quink squad inside to finish trashing the place, so Tuka and Kaneki have no choice but to run for their life. After finding somewhere to rest, Tuka and Kaneki pick back up where they were before Toru came barging in. As expected, Kaneki is a virgin, so Tuka helps him out with that. Hey, go Ken, let's go! After doing their thing, Tuka gives Kaneki a ring that belonged to her parents so he can wear it around his neck. Quite the souvenir. Later on, Kaneki finds out that Tuka is pregnant. Okay, that was fast. So Kaneki marries her, and they hold a massive party with the rest of the ghouls to celebrate the marriage and also the fact that Kaneki is now the One-Eyed King. Episode 8 is called Incarnation, Awakened Child. We rejoin the party as everyone is laughing and enjoying themselves. That's until a few wedding crashers show up, and they ain't here for the cake. Not that there was any to begin with. Yup, Toru and her new Quink squad, the O-Guys, are here to wipe out every ghoul at this party, starting with our boy Kaneki. After telling Tuka to escape, Kaneki gathers up his squad to take on the CCG. Toru immediately goes after Tuka to finish what she started back at the cafe. But because Tuka is pregnant, she is not in any shape to be fighting, and soon enough Toru has her pinned against a wall. Meanwhile, Kaneki isn't doing much better because the O-Guys have him surrounded. Kaneki then notices that all the O-Guy members have the same Kagune he got from Rize, which means that Dr. Kano created them as well. As expected, the O-Guys show no mercy to Kaneki, and Tuka has to watch as her newly wedded husband gets beat up. Back at the CCG headquarters, Furuta reveals his true intentions to reset the world by throwing it into chaos. What Furuta doesn't know is that he is secretly being suspected by Yuri from the original Quink squad for being a traitor. So, Yuri goes with investigator Kuroiwa to ask Furuta a few questions. This goes as well as you would imagine, and the two investigators find themselves fighting for their lives against Furuta's henchmen. After Kuroiwa gets injured, Yuri is left to defend against two ghouls as well as Furuta, who was enjoying watching the investigators fight to survive. Somehow, Yuri finds the strength to dispatch the two ghouls, and just when she goes to check on Kuroiwa, Furuta steps in and stabs Kuroiwa with a sword. But what goes around comes around, because right after he does this, Marude comes flying in and rescues Yuri by shooting Furuta. Back over at the wedding ceremony, things are looking sketchy. Kaneki is about to black out when he notices that Tuka still hasn't escaped. This triggers more stress than Kaneki is used to, probably because he has so much to lose now, which makes him lose control while transforming. Kaneki's transformation isn't anything we have seen, because now he's turned into a dragon that is so big it covers the entire city and practically destroys the whole place. Okay, what? The next episode is titled Morse, Remembrances, and this one is full of pure destruction. As Kaneki's monster Kagune spreads and destroys the city, Dr. Kano meets his end after Kurona finds him visiting her sister's grave. Kurona would have killed him, but Dr. Kano takes matters into his own hands by removing himself from the server. As the monster spreads, Kaneki's team chips in to rescue him before it's too late. So guess who makes a comeback like nothing ever happened? That's right, Hide pops back up in a full scarecrow mask and is busy gathering people who would be interested in helping Kaneki. Soon, Hide has a huge squad of ghouls and humans alike, and they all march right into the CCG headquarters. Yeah, just like that, and there isn't a thing any CCG officer could do about it. Luckily for them, all the group wanted was for ghouls and CCG officers to team up. At first, the officers damn near showed them the finger, but after Tuka, Hide, and Amon speak up about how it was for saving the entire city, as well as Kaneki, they just agreed to team up for the one time. Also, two lovebirds we haven't seen since Season 1 are together again. Nishio and Kimi are back at it. Now that Kimi's boss, Dr. Kano, is dead, she has come into the CCG to help them find a way to rescue Kaneki and destroy the dragon. But it's Tuka who comes up with a master plan. Remember that ring she gave Kaneki to wear? Well, what if they used metal detectors to find Kaneki's body that was trapped inside the dragon? Everyone agrees it's a good plan, so after a generous donation from Tsukiyama's dad to buy metal detectors, the group begins searching for Kaneki. They make decent progress, but here comes Toru, who still hasn't settled her score with Kaneki or Tuka. So when she hears that her old Quink squad were out looking for Kaneki, she attacks them. But instead of retaliating, Yuri chooses to show Toru love, which causes her to break down and ask for forgiveness. Episode 10 is titled Call, The Far Side of Tragedy. Now, what is it like inside of a monster's mind? Not very pretty. As episode 10 takes us deep into Kaneki's unconscious mind, we see him struggle to come to grips with the innocent lives he has taken after transforming into the dragon. A wall of human victims gets beamed into the water around Kaneki as it turns red, representing the blood on his hands. Rize is here too, and you can bet she has nothing positive to tell Kaneki. In the end, Kaneki is able to make peace with the situation and accepts himself. As he does, a light appears above him, which we soon see is Tuka pulling him out from inside the dragon. As he recovers in the hospital, Kaneki's closest friends gather around his bed and hope for the best. Back outside, more trouble is cooking up in the streets. Even though Kaneki isn't inside the monster, it starts producing freakish monsters that spit gas that turn humans into ghouls. And guess who just so happens to be live on the scene to report it all? Yeah, Furuta, of course. The sly Washu clan man is absolutely responsible for this, and he happily spreads fear and confusion around the city, not long after the monsters group up and start circling the Quink squad who were outside. Then, one of the monsters catches Psycho off guard and blasts her with the toxic gas. Now, they're down one member and their way out is blocked until Kaneki appears. Yeah, he heals really fast and he's here just in time to protect his old CCG squad. Even though he risks losing control again, Kaneki still uses his Kagune to defeat the monsters, and damn, it's pretty sick. After the fight, Kaneki meets up with Hide, and sees the damage Hide took from the Yenteku raid. Hide's lower face is basically torn off, but Kaneki asks to see it so that he can forgive himself. The next episode is called Act Encounter. With just 12 hours to spare, Kaneki and his friends have to figure out how to deactivate the second core that's inside the monster that's underground. Someone will need to go down there and be able to make it through the toxic gas long enough to do it. But these guys can't catch a break, because as they're discussing their plan, Donato Porpora's men can be heard not too far away. With no time to waste, Kaneki and Ayato decide to deactivate the core together, while Kimi guides them from above the surface. The others who won't be joining them will defend the streets above. And then, boom, some random monster appears and it starts trying to slice the entirety of Tokyo in half with a laser beam. Even the great Juzu is lost for words as the monster tanks everything the CCG throws at it. Soon though, they figure out that the monster is being controlled by Donato Porpora, the evil pastor who's been wreaking havoc far away from his crime scene on a rooftop he thought nobody would find. Eventually, Donato comes face to face with his adopted son Amon, whom he had traumatized by eating Amon's childhood friends. Yeah, pretty wild, right? The two go face to face, with Donato preying on him mentally and almost reducing Amon to the scared child he was so many years ago. But Amon has nerves of steel, and manages to not be distracted by Donato's taunting or his fake clones of himself. Eventually, Amon manages to lay his foster father to rest, with him getting to vent to Donato before he dies. By doing this, Amon is able to destroy the controls that Donato was using to operate the monster. The beast then slowly disintegrates while Amon stands over his once foster dad who is taking his last breaths. The episode then closes out as Kaneki runs into Furuta, who is standing as a guard over the second core. Oh boy, here we go. The last episode is literally called the final episode. So, Kaneki tries to dodge as many hits from Furuta without having to kill him, but the sly Washu clan man just goes out of his way to try to kill Kaneki. This eventually forces Mr. One-Eyed King himself to unleash a bit more of his power against Furuta by busting out a whole new setup. Damn! With a heavy heart, Kaneki puts an end to Furuta. We get flashbacks of Furuta's life, and it's kinda hard to care cause look at the destruction this guy has caused, just so he can cleanse the earth by destroying it? Anyway, Kaneki moves on and deactivates the second core. As the dragon slowly shuts down cell by cell, it's announced over the radio that the fighting has stopped and the CCG Ghoul team has won. But Kaneki still has his work cut out for him while he battles the remaining active parts of the dragon. Soon enough, he reaches the final head and sees someone at the center of the beast that has been the most important person in his life until now. Rize. Rize's organs were being used as a vital component of the dragon's core. Kaneki tells her goodbye as he destroys her cocoon, ultimately saving Tokyo. We time skip to 6 years after all of that, and we see Tokyo has resurfaced, but as a much different city. The aqueducts that carried the poisonous gas that turned the humans into ghouls have been destroyed. Also, a new anti-venom was made using samples from the dragon's spawn, which will eventually save more lives than it took. We also see the reunion between Juzo and his old mentor Commander Shinohara, who has just woken up out of a coma. And what about our friends from Anteku? Well, Tuka and Kaneki have a healthy baby boy, with Yomo playing the perfect granduncle, while Ayato, Hinami, and Hide regularly go out to chill. And just like that, we're through with the story of Ken Kaneki. Personally, this is one story that certainly won't be accused of living up to its full potential. The anime adaptation has been very controversial, to put it mildly, but if there's one lesson to be learned from this story, I guess it's about justice. Is it justice to fight for your own even if it means killing someone else's loved one? Well, the citizens of Tokyo would certainly say so, but their days of fighting ghouls are over as they learned it's much better to coexist than to destroy and kill. Well, up until next time then, have a good day, and as usual, thanks for watching.